business owners who have started a business and that business failed will tell you that it's better to try and to lose than to not try at all. It's like no risk, no reward.
Well, you learn from the failure.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Brothers Random Show. My name is Travis.
I'm Michael.
And we are two ordinary brothers discussing extraordinary ideas and some random shit. Michael, why are we here?
Today we are discussing the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, reviewing, talking about some takeaways. Let's get into it. Paulo Coelho writes the story of Santiago, really a journey. It's a hero's journey in a sense, but it's also a story that is analogous to all of us. And it's him finding his personal legend, which is kind of the undertoning of this story, is to inspire all of us to find our personal legend.
It's a parable. It feels very much like a parable, like metaphorical. It's a very short book, and this is my first time reading it. This is
Oh gosh,
second or third time.
Oh yeah. I went there for a while there. I would listen to it and I would just go back and I would just start it over again. I probably had a few months where I just kind of did that. And I was just trying to, I'm in sales, so trying to improve my life and keep the faith, right? And this book helped me a lot of times just through that to just kind of keep going when you don't feel like going anymore.
Let's just do a quick summary of it. It starts out, he's a shepherd boy.
Well, he has a dream of treasure buried at the base of the pyramids. Okay. And so he's like, I don't know about this dream thing. He randomly stumbles upon a man that kind of talks in riddle, and he's mysterious. Turns out his name is Melchizedek. I mean, this whole story is shrouded in kind of a little bit of magic. It's a little fantastical. So
the boy goes on a journey, and he basically has all these obstacles in his way to get to his treasure, the treasure that he's after.
Yeah.
And this is more or less the gist of the story.
Yeah.
And
ultimately you kind of find out that his growth as a person chasing the treasure is the treasure. Spoiler alert.
We will be spoiling this book.
Yeah. So spoiler alert. I mean, eventually he does find the treasure, but at the same time, once he has found the treasure, he is more valuable as a person by the time he gets to the treasure. Now,
because he's learned so much along the way.
Right.
He's learned languages. He's learned about love. He's learned about, there's so many things that he learns while he's on this journey.
Yeah. Well, and he finds the love of his life, and so the finding the treasure at the end isn't the only treasure. He finds himself, and he finds love, and he finds
there's little treasures throughout. along the way too. There's little treasures. And so it's basically about, it sums up life. Like we are headed towards this thing. So go ahead and say what you wanted to say about Melchizedek.
Oh, Melchizedek. Well, we love Jordan Peterson on this podcast. One of the things that Peterson mentions is that Abraham was sitting in his father's tent, and he was failure to launch. He didn't move out, and
he was having his slaves peel his grapes for him, that kind of thing.
Yeah, he didn't find his own personal legend, and eventually God calls him to adventure, and he goes out and he finds all kinds of shit. But throughout that, Melchizedek was actually the guy that Abraham paid tithes to.
It would have been his religious leader, essentially.
In a sense, like, and we don't. It's kind of shrouded and he's the Prince of Peace for Salem. So it's just we. It's kind of shrouded in a little bit of mystery. We don't learn a lot about him from the scriptures, but
or this book. This book doesn't say much about him either.
Yeah, well, and this book, obviously, it's showing this character as a mythical character that, you know, is living 2,000 years
after.
It would be it'd be like 3,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
3,000, yeah, it'd be about 3,000 years after the fact, like after the real him. It's like, is he the Melchizedek that talked to Abraham, that you know, that got tithes from Abraham? Maybe, yeah, probably. Like he lived, you know, he's one of those things.
This whole book has different religious, like it talks about the Quran, it talks about the Bible. Was there any Buddhist? There was a little bit of Buddhism in it, I think. I can't remember.
Like, and it could have just been part of like where it's at. So it's right there where there's Muslims, there's
and Christians,
and
Jews,
and then also he meets a British guy that is seeking alchemy,
his own legend, right? So it's more about destiny than anything else. And you and I are always talking about this because we also love Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning book. And so there's always this drive within us to try to find the meaning in our life, or not only the meaning in our life, but like what our purpose is to achieve. So and that's you know, and that's why this book is so appealing, is because it's heavily allegorical. So like I said, I think it comes across more of like a fable kind of thing. And it's a very simple story. It doesn't, there's not a lot of complexity to it. There was hardly any characters that were named. I didn't know that the boy's name was Santiago until I started researching it. And because I don't know if he says Santiago ever. And does he say it at the beginning of the book, or do you recall?
Oh, shoot. Where does it? I think it says it, but it's in passing, and I think it says it once.
Yeah, because he calls him the boy through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they call the alchemist through the whole thing. There's very few names. And I don't know if that's intentional or if that's through translation, because this wasn't published in English. This was actually published in Portuguese.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah. Paulo Coelho is from Brazil, and it's kind of isn't that kind of interesting that it found its way to English translation, and it is a favorite amongst so many business gurus.
Russell Crowe mentioned it on Joe Rogan's show.
Did he? I did not. I did not catch that. Yeah, I don't think I listened to the whole thing.
So the original publication was in Brazil in 1988, and it was a failure. It came out and they only sold 900 copies, and they pretty much stopped printing it. And then all of a sudden it started selling slowly, and then they started translating it slowly, and then it made its way over to the United States. It has a Guinness Book of World Record setting for translated in over 80 languages. And it's, as of right now, it's sold over 150 million copies worldwide. So, and it sat on the New York Times bestseller list for over 360 weeks.
Wow. So once the word got out, it sat on the New York Times bestseller list for
360 weeks.
Okay.
Sat on the best-selling list for 6 years.
Wow.
And I mean, like I said, Russell Crowe mentioned it in his podcast. He said in the podcast with Joe Rogan, he said it was a big deal for him. So in 1988, he would have been barely starting to act in Australia. So I mean, just what an accomplishment is it? I can't say that it was entertaining. because I was expecting like action. There's a couple of tense moments when he gets robbed, and then there's a tribes that are warring with each other, and he gets kidnapped by one of the tribes. So there's stuff like that happens, but it's not one of those books that you're really reading. I wouldn't say for entertainment purposes, but more for the allegory and the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fascinating book because I could probably listen to it again and see nuances in it.
Yeah, like I mean, there's just throughout his journey, he meets a few characters. He works for a guy for a year, and he makes money. So he makes a lot of money because all of his money gets stolen at the beginning, and he's basically broke. And he starts working for a guy and doing sales of crystal.
Yeah, he brings great ideas, and this kind of furthers this man's business.
Well, so, and the story is showing you allegorically, it's kind of showing you that he makes some money, and he decides
go stop going for their legend.
Yep, and then the shop owner.
There's all these obstacles in his way, right? So he becomes successful as a shop employee.
Yeah.
And you can see that he could stop there. Like he could stay there and keep going. And this is kind of what happens with a lot of people. You know, Joe Rogan once said that most men live lives of quiet desperation, meaning that they're not achieving what they wanted to.
They're stuck in their 9 to 5, and and they don't ever get out of it.
And that's what that represents. Him in that moment, he could choose to just be the crystal shop, and
or go back to being a shepherd,
to being a shepherd. And he's that option keeps popping up throughout the book for him to leave and go back to his home country. So he's in a foreign country, and he has to learn the language, and he learns the language. And there's a bunch of other things that happen, but the growth, the point of the book is that he's growing as a human being. And it's so fascinating.
Well, the shop owner is a Muslim, and he talks about how if he were seeking, in a sense, it says like if he were seeking his own personal legend, the shop owner would go to Mecca. He would do his pilgrimage to Mecca, but he just kind of comes up with excuses of why he can't, or why he won't, or why he shouldn't. Like,
which we all do. We all do this. We all like are stuck in our 9 to 5. We're all trying to just make ends meet, and then we're making up these excuses to not further the journey of our lives.
Yeah, like Joe Rogan says, become the hero of your own story.
Yeah.
Right. And you see that theme with Joe Rogan. You see the theme a lot where people are like, yeah, I could have just stayed where I was and not kind of pursued that personal legend of doing something greater than I was kind of stuck doing.
Which is purpose, right? It's
meaning, purpose, something beyond yourself,
like your mark on the world, on the world.
Yeah, mark on the world. All these things, which is what's great about an allegory. With a story like this, an allegory like this, you're able to just kind of take the story and internalize it how you need to. How does this impact my life? Well, here's a story, and maybe this is the point of scripture, is like that there's a story, and how does that story need to impact you on an individual basis? Maybe it's not a one size fits all. Maybe it is supposed to be able to talk to you in your own personal situation, and use to be better, to become better.
And that's why there's that personal, your own personal legend. And that's and he repeats that a lot through this, is everybody's got their own path,
Mm-hmm.
and your path can get derailed throughout. So
Mm-hmm.
it's about to be derailed by being robbed. It's about to be derailed by being successful. Then he gets to the oasis and falls in love. So it's
Mm.
about to be derailed by love. Then
Which his love actually kind of pushes him. Hey, listen.
yes, go find
I don't
your
want to be the reason you didn't find your personal legend. So
see, and this is something that a lot of women don't understand is not to make this about men and women,
yeah.
but um because this book could apply to women as well. And but the point I think of the love interest is because she's supportive of him finding his personal legend, he's able to go. But
Yeah.
but a lot of the time that doesn't happen. A
Yeah.
lot of the time,
Sometimes a woman will be like,
no,
nope, you're
no,
not going to do that.
you're not
You're
going to
going to
do that.
stay here with me. Um,
You're
and
not going to
it's almost
pursue
like an eatable mother thing
like
where
a giant.
they grab it and they just, nope, you're going to stay. You're not going to do,
We're going to have
you're not going to do that
babies,
thing.
and you're going to be stuck to, and you're not going to achieve your fullest potential. Now, there's an argument to be made that maybe children is your fullest potential, that raising a good
Oh,
a child.
Elon Musk said something about this, and I am 100% on board. And I hate it when people try to equate the idea of having children being the end of your life. Is complete bullshit. And
Don't you think that Paulo Coelho is doing that in this book by saying that she needs to wait for him?
no, he could have done it even if he had kids.
Like he could have taken her with him.
I'm 100% on board with that. Like
that would have been a better part of the story.
It
if he had married her and took her with him.
You want to know what would have been cool?
Okay.
Is so at the end, this is, and we've said spoilers already.
Yeah, we're already in spoilers.
You realize he goes to the pyramids, and he's about to be killed by some robbers who take all of his money because he was given some gold by the alchemist, who kind of takes him under his wing for a minute, and teaches him some things. Anyway, he is there digging at the base of the pyramids looking for his treasure. These bandits catch him, steal all of his gold, beat him up. And basically, one of them, they're about to leave him, and they're just like, yeah, you know what? You're stupid for trying to find gold here. You know what? And I had a dream. This is the bandit. He's like, I had a dream that there was treasure in Spain under a church, which is the exact spot that our hero of the story,
the boy,
started at the very beginning of the story.
Was at the church.
Was at the church in Spain. And so he realizes, and he has a little bit where he's just like shaking his fist at the God of the universe. He's shaking his fist at the universe, and he says, why did you have to have me go through all these things when the treasure was back home
where I started
the whole time? Okay.
Well, and the thought is that he became wiser.
Yeah.
And
it was about the journey.
It was about the journey. It was about getting, and then he has to go back.
His growth. And then he goes back. Now, it mentions that on his way back, he grabs Fatima, and then goes back to his treasure. What would have been fun is if he had a couple kids too by that point. So at the very end,
that's interesting.
What would have been cool about that is that it would have shown that there was a whole long journey of him getting back to that place
Mm-hmm.
because on the way out, he found, he grew, he learned, he fell in love, and um and basically kind of had a aha moment of where his treasure was.
Mm-hmm.
And then on his way back, if he had some kids during that time,
then
it would have been like,
because that's even more of the journey. That's
you can have
added
kids
to the journey,
and you can have kids and you can pursue your personal legend as well.
Yes.
Kids don't have to be in this.
End
Elon
of
Musk,
your personal legend.
Yeah. Elon Musk talks about this a little bit where he in our society, and this is
the wokesters,
woke crowd, that they want abortion to stay a woman's right. And so they fight for that. But one of the things Elon is saying, he's like, listen, having a kid doesn't have to be the end of your life.
Yes.
And I think that we do women a total disservice by telling them that if you get pregnant and you have a kid, that is the end of your life. To me, I think that is not woman empowerment. That is pushing a victim narrative, disempowerment. So anyway, that would have been kind of fun. But I think that so many times, so it's like, it's just like the Muslim shop owner, just excuses. Like, I didn't go seek my personal legend by going to Mecca, which is my religious thing that Muslims are supposed to do. They're supposed to have a
journey,
pilgrimage
once
to Mecca. Life. But he came up with excuses on why he couldn't. And I think just kids are just another excuse of like why you can't.
Why you can't.
Yeah. I get it, but I don't think it does just our
there's
culture
too many,
or our nature or our generation any favors by saying that once you have kids, you can't follow a dream ever.
Yeah. There's too many people that need to stop the disconnect between your personal legend or your destiny and your children. Like they either need to coincide or they need to be the personal legend. Because the birth gap is a perfect example of why people like this society is more concerned with getting to their personal legend than they are with having children. But what if their personal legend is having children?
And as biological beings, it is built within us to reproduce ourselves.
Yes.
And that's all of nature. All of biology is about reproducing yourself.
Yeah.
That's
how you further any kind of species. Like,
right.
And I believe that there's anti-humanists that think that having children is a disservice to our society, which I think it's the opposite. Not having children is a disservice to society. And that's one thing that's messing in this book, I would say. But of course, Paulo Coelho probably didn't have children at the time that he wrote the book. So it makes sense that wouldn't be what he was concerned with at the time. Probably the only reason that it concerns us is because we do have children. And they occupy our mental space a lot.
And this whole story starts out with him in his home, at his home, where he's a peaceful shepherd that could kind of have everything that he, the peacefulness in life and just have it. But he goes on this journey, and this is exactly kind of, if you think about it, this is kind of what happens with Abraham. He goes on this journey, a bunch of shit happens. He finds like his wife almost gets stolen from him, and he ends up in some wars, and he fights some kings, and then but in this story, he ends up back to where he started, having learned all these things. And so it's, in a sense, it's like, how do you have your cake and eat it too? right?
Well, it's like a balance. It's like
Yeah.
if you have too much of one or the other, then you're running into problems with life. Is like maybe we just need balance in everything.
Yeah. How do you have kids and seek your personal legend when kids take so much of your time, right? And so much of your energy. But also, you don't want to look at your kids and be like, you're the reason I didn't seek my personal legend. That's not fair either. You know, I think I had a little bit of I might have had a little bit of a problem with the idea that he would just kind of adhere to the omens is another thing that is talked about in this book. Well, adhere to the omens. And if you don't know what the omens mean, here's a Urim and Thummim. Put them in a bag, a white rock and a black rock. If you pull out white and then that's yes, and if you pull out black, it's no. Right. Well, to me that leaves a lot open for chance. I'm more of the type that's like decide what you want and then go for it.
So this is where you disagree with this book, then?
A little bit, probably. just a tad. But hear me out, because one of the things that happens with people a lot, I think, is that they won't decide, like choose one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you choose wrongly, and this is business owners who have started a business and that business failed, will tell you that it's better to try and to lose than to not try at all. Right? Like it's better to go through that, because ultimately it's like no risk, no reward. Like ultimately you're going to,
well, you learn from the failure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in a sense, I think what he was kind of saying in that is that even if you just draw straws, even if you just go for it, but you fork in the road, it's like coin toss, right? Mm-hmm. Fork in the road, go left or right. Well, at least you're not just sitting at the fork of the road and not doing anything.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't stay at the crystal shop and just forever for the rest of his life.
Well, it requires action, right? It requires you need to do something that furthers whatever your personal legend is going to be.
And choose, right? Yeah. Choose left or right in the fork of the road. Mm-hmm. Pull out a rock that's black or white and says yes or no. Right. Like, anyway, I think that's kind of what he was.
Well, and Stephen Pressfield, the author of The War of Art and Virtues of War, he's done a ton of books, but he always talks about the muse, the thing that drives you to further your personal legend. And then he's always talking about resistance. Resistance is like the force, the invisible force that keeps you from doing the things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and he's always talking about those two things. So it's very similar to what Paulo Coelho is doing here. It's like, he's like, these are the things that will keep you from doing it. And you need to make choices. You need to make actions. You need to do things that further push you to the personal legend, the purpose.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of like about all of these writers, is they all have this, it's like the invisible forces that push you further, or the visible forces that stop you from achieving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyway, love this book. I think if you look at it the right way, it'll definitely change your life. You can use it to change your life.
To seek out your personal legend.
Yeah.
Thank you for going through this book with us, audience. Check us out on social media, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you are listening to this show and not watching it, please go to YouTube and give us a like, share, and subscribe. In the meantime, keep reading, keep listening, keep watching, learn more. Thanks, brother.
See ya.